3, 2, talk. Hello, CrossFit Fortem community. What's up? We are back. This is episode 5 of Fortem Talk. Today's topic, what is CrossFit? So this is going to open up a whole thread of episodes where we dive into the CrossFit methodology, what makes it what it is. Really the purpose behind this is we want people to understand what they're doing.
Yep.
That's a simple point right there. But you're more invested in things that you are knowledgeable about, that you know about and understand well. And that's the goal for us, to communicate these things to you in a way that's helpful.
Yeah, a topic that is near and dear to my heart. I could talk about this all day long, so hopefully we're reasonable on the
I'm going to keep you reined
time.
in. I'm going to keep you reined in.
But yeah, I could talk about this all day. I think it's super, super important to know when you're coming into this gym, why are you doing what you do?
For sure. All right, I got a question for you. What is the most old school CrossFit thing you've ever done? And I'm talking like you wore knee-high socks. You wore five-finger shoes, headbands.
Oh, man, yeah. Yeah, thinking grassroots old
Yes.
CrossFit. Man, yeah, I would say so I came into CrossFit watching Rich Froning. So if you don't know who Rich Froning is, Rich Froning won the CrossFit Games 5 times?
4
times.
by himself.
By himself, yeah. So, and then,
6
tons of
times.
teams.
What's-
But I ordered the Nano 2s, right? The CrossFit shoe. I remember
That's pretty OG
unboxing the Nano 2s, and I think I customized them, like to my color. Like you could
I remember
choose what
that.
color, what the bottom, the sole would look like.
I wasted hours customizing.
Yeah,
shoes.
I think I did tons of them, but I just got one. But yeah, Nano 2s. I think that's
Nice.
one of the CrossFit-y things that I've done in my life.
I like that. Let me ask you a question. Do you know what virtual shoveling is?
No.
This is the mark of a true old school CrossFitter. Okay, I want you to imagine a barbell loaded on both sides, 45-pound plate on each side.
Yeah.
Now take one of them off, so it's loaded lopsided. You're going to hold the barbell like a shovel. So with the weight on the bottom end, you're going to lift it up and over a box for 1 rep. And now imagine doing a 21-15-9 workout with virtual shoveling reps and burpees or something with it.
Was that an original .com workout?
Virtual shoveling was a prescribed movement on CrossFit.com. And let me tell you, this would
never heard of
destroy your back like nothing else.
Wow. Hey, functional.
It is very
Which
functional.
is what we'll get into here, but
Straight-
wow, I've never heard of that.
Virtual shoveling.
That's like old school.
It is
Yeah.
very old school.
Wow.
Probably good that we don't do that nowadays. There's safer methods of training flexion. But that's where I'm coming from. Wow. Old school. So, okay, let's dive into this topic a little bit. Let's set the scene here. I've been around the CrossFit world for half of my life now. I think it'll be 18 years in November, something like that. I've seen some major pendulum swings with how people relate to CrossFit. And what I mean is how much they want to know about CrossFit. In the early days, when someone would just even ask you, like, what is CrossFit? Most people couldn't answer that question. It was really just something you experienced. They would just invite you to come work out with them. And that would be how you came to understand what CrossFit is. You would try a workout, whether it's a 21-15-9, a super fast sprinty type workout that's pretty uncommon in normal fitness spaces. And you would feel the crazy Fran lung burn. You would just get that sensation of being spent after a workout and just kind of ask yourself, like, what is this?
Yeah, what am I doing?
Yeah, what am I doing here? And it's good. It's a good feeling to get that amount of work done in a short amount of time. And I think that experience would drive you to want to learn more about it. At the time in 2007 when I started CrossFit, there wasn't this wealth of resources out there. There's not flashy YouTube channels. There's not all sorts of fitness influencers out there. It wasn't huge in social media. So really the way you learned about it was going to the resources that CrossFit itself put out through the CrossFit Journal.
Yep.
And there is just some incredible articles in there that really describe what it is CrossFit accomplishes, what are the foundational principles that they're applying to the methodology. And it's just crazy helpful to have read through that stuff. So you just got curious about it, and you kind of had to be, because it wasn't just easily accessible.
Yep.
You dug deep, you talked to your coaches, you spent time in the gym around other people, and this stuff was just all really talked about.
Yep.
As CrossFit grew, as it became bigger, that kind of landscape started changing. You kind of saw an explosion in other areas of fitness too. People in different sports or methodologies, like you had bodybuilding, you had wellness culture, you had people in these kind of like real specific boutique fitness type things. Spin-offs
Yeah.
in a lot of ways. You got High Rocks is the big one nowadays. All in this kind of fitness content space. And I think what it really happened is it became so overwhelming to find good information that most people just stopped looking.
Yep.
Like, you can't really tell what's good, so why bother, right?
Right.
No one's going to sift through everything. But something that hasn't changed is people still come into a CrossFit gym with the same goals. Like, they want to look good, they want to feel good, they want to move better and increase their fitness, right? Whether they understand what that means or not is a different thing, but those are the kind of things that they want.
Yeah.
I don't think they really understand, though, why CrossFit is going to get them there. And that's what we want to accomplish with this, right?
Yep.
So we want to give you context and clarity to see why this methodology works.
Yeah.
And understanding that will help you get better results from it. It'll help the way you approach your workouts, having an understanding of why we do what we do, what you're trying to get out of a specific workout of the day, and what your coaches are telling you in a class.
Yep.
So something else that has happened in my years in the CrossFit world, there's also been just like a cultural shift overall. I feel like in the early years, it was really not a lot about what you looked like. It was just the most regular people, myself completely included, who had no experience with fitness or working out or bodybuilding or anything like that. And you just got so stoked off the kind of improvements that you would make in such a short amount of time. Like, it was crazy to really see how much strength, mobility, fitness you could just gain in such a short amount of time. And that just speaks to how effective CrossFit is when done right.
Yep.
And the aesthetics were kind of an afterthought, even though you would see people's bodies just totally transform from what they're doing. I think, though, a lot of times for people who are a few years into their journey, if they haven't dialed in their nutrition, they kind of start wondering, like, why don't I look as fit as I feel? Like, why doesn't that line up? And so they might start thinking like, oh, I need to do different things with my training, or like start to kind of wander from the core principles of CrossFit. So we want to help you avoid that. We want to help you avoid the confusion and really say, like, this is what CrossFit is. Let's make it clear. And this is why it works. And this is how it should be done, right?
Yep. And I think that's exactly why it's so important that we're having this conversation, because for a lot of people, the moment you say CrossFit, alarm bells start going off in their head and say, that's dangerous.
Yeah.
I'm going to get hurt. Or high intensity is not for me, right? The definition has high intensity in it. And they're like, nope, high intensity, not for me. All right, so that's something that we want to clear up, kind of unpack this definition, because it's about relative intensity, relative high intensity, right? And then more importantly, about mechanics and consistency. And that's the progression we follow, right? Mechanics, okay, how you do things, technique. Can you do it consistently, right? And then once you can do it consistently, then we start building an intensity. And that's the key difference, right? Especially when you're figuring out, okay, where am I going to go to work out? What gym should I go to? You should have there coaches who actually help you with this, right? You need coaches who will scale your workouts, know your fitness level, know your abilities, coach you through good movement, make sure you're doing things right, and then build that consistency first. Then we start adding in intensity.
Yeah.
And that's what we believe in at CrossFit Fortem. That's what we do. That's what I think our coaches, shout out to our coaches, shout out to them all for doing this and really caring about each and every person that comes in here, because when you do this, right, we know it works. We know that when you use this type of progression, we've seen it work for years, and we've seen it transform lives.
Yeah.
So I think that's what we want to do. That's why we want you to understand, okay, you come here and you do CrossFit. What is it you're doing, and why does it work?
Yeah, cool. Let's define it.
Yeah.
What is CrossFit?
Official definition. You probably hear this, or you probably heard this. This is, right, when I think about CrossFit, right, this gets said.
Quickly.
Quickly.
Usually
yeah.
very rapidly.
It's like memorized, right? So I'll say it slow. So let's start here. The official definition of CrossFit is constantly varied functional movements performed at a high intensity. Simple, but what in the world does that mean, right?
Sure.
So if you just tell someone that, a lot of times you can be like, cool, what is that?
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
So let's take it. There's 3 parts there. Let's take it one at a time.
Yep.
First thing is constantly varied. So constant variation means purposeful variation, right?
Yeah.
This is not random. This isn't like muscle confusion. That was like a term that has been thrown around a lot. There are specific things that we are trying to vary, and it's for purposes of gaining a well-rounded fitness, right? So different time domains, so that we do workouts that are short, we do workouts that are long, and everything in between.
Yep.
Rep schemes. We do things that are high rep. We do things that are low rep. Everything in between, right? Workout formats. We're going to change how we go about working out to drive different stimuluses. Doing things that are focused on completing a set amount of work as fast as you can. Doing things that are going to last for a set amount of time and working as much as you can. Mm-hmm. Those are all ways that we introduce variance, but you can see even by the way we're talking about it, it's definitely not random. There's methods to it.
Yeah, a purpose and a method. Yeah, right. And that's the thing we like to say here, train for life, right? So what you're doing when you come in the gym is it's preparing you for anything that could happen in the gym or outside the gym. That's the goal. We don't want to specialize in one thing.
Yeah.
Right? It's awesome to be really good at running, right? It's awesome to be very strong. But when you put those things together and build that fitness in all those realms, right? That's why some days we have heavy lifts, right? That's why some days there's gymnastics in the workout, or in other days, maybe it's just cardio, or it's a combination of all those things. The constantly variedness of it helps you prepare you and be the most well-rounded human being that you can be inside the gym and outside the gym.
Yeah, for sure. It's kind of a cheesy way to think about it, that like life doesn't give you body splits. Like you don't get to be in some scenario where you have chest day and it's Monday and Wednesday is like legs and core or whatever. But I feel like the more life I live, the more I appreciate that like this stuff applies. Like, we bought our first house a year ago, and the kind of physical days of like doing projects, I'm like, oh man, this is actually like applying the variance that I've gained in CrossFit in a real way. And, we want this to be something that builds you up for years down the road. I think the more time that you do CrossFit, the more life you live, the more you'll see that, oh, this helps me.
Yeah. Maybe one day in life you think it's going to be chest day, but it turns into a leg day.
Exactly.
What are you going to do?
What are you going to do?
CrossFit, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Prepare you for it. Yeah, exactly. And by constantly varying workouts, right, you avoid plateaus, keeps things mentally fresh. I like the aspect of when I come in, it's a different thing every day, right? I'm not doing the same thing every single day, every single week. And I think the biggest thing is it improves across a broad spectrum of fitness. I think and we'll dive into this in future episodes too, as what is fitness, right? That kind of thing. But it's broad. It's not this simple thing of like, I can go run 5 miles, right? Or I can, do hammer curls. CrossFit helps you improve in a broad sense, like we talk about, being the most well-rounded, healthy human being you can be, I think is why this helps.
Yeah, for sure. Those are really good practical benefits of variance.
Okay, second part, right? Constantly varied is the first part. Second part, functional movements. What are functional movements? What does that mean? I think the best way to describe it is, right, the movements that we do in the gym, they mimic real life.
Yeah.
Right? For example, squatting, deadlifting, right? Those types of things, right? Squatting, you're sitting down to something, standing up, picking something off the ground, right? Deadlift, pressing something overhead into a cupboard, right? Those types of things, jumping, running, super important skills that we want you to have. That is functional movement, and that's what we do.
Yeah, for sure. And you need to be able to do these things for your entire life. Like, there's no point where you're like, oh, I don't need to be able to press something over my head anymore. Like, whether it's something heavy or not might change, but you need to be able to do that movement. So these movements are unique and effective in training because they move large loads, long distances quickly. Yeah. That is power. That is how human beings express power by moving.
And everyone wants to be powerful.
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to be powerful.
Yeah, for sure. Who doesn't?
Yeah.
Moving large loads, long distances quickly. So when we are in workouts, we're trying to accomplish as much power as we can in whatever scenario is on the board, right? Yeah. That's how we maximize the amount of fitness you're getting from a workout. Is we're trying to help you express maximal power output in just this huge array of different circumstances. And that's, again, getting us a well-rounded fitness.
Yeah. And thinking about, like, that's in the here and now, right? Building that for here and now. How would you say that, right? Thinking about beyond that, right? How do functional movements help you later on in life?
So imagine right now you can deadlift 400 pounds.
Yeah.
You don't lose that overnight. Like, when you get yourself a 400-pound deadlift, that strength stays. And if you keep CrossFitting, you're maybe going to get an even stronger deadlift, or at least you maintain it for years and years down the road, right? So when it comes to a time where you're just older, maybe you can't deadlift 400 pounds anymore, but you can still pick things up off the ground. You can still bend over and tie your own shoes.
And you have that form, and you have the way of doing it, and it's super helpful.
Exactly. Your body knows how to move in ways that it needs to function in day-to-day life. We'll talk more about this in a future episode, but it's building you a hedge against decrepitude, which we are all headed towards at a rate that we are not really paying much attention to. But at some point,
that's reality.
You will be old. That's reality.
Right.
This is a fitness that is functional because it trains movements that you need.
Yep. And that's why you'll see these movements show up over and over and over again in programming. Right? Programming is something that I love. And, soon we'll have Aiden on here and talk about how we program throughout the week. But that's why you see air squats, different types of squatting, right? Different types of pressing, different types of things, is because all these movements that we do, even snatch and clean, right? They are transferable to real life. They produce power, right? And they help you do real work.
Yeah.
Whether it be work in the gym or work outside the gym.
100%. So that's our functional movements component of the definition. So we have constantly varied. We have functional movements. The last piece here is high intensity. This one is very often misunderstood.
Yeah. Which is why I like that we're talking about it.
For sure. On the surface, you might think high intensity and you think this is going full send in a workout. This is 3, 2, 1, go, and you just lose complete control. That is not what high intensity is, right?
Yeah.
It's not just always going full throttle. An intense lifting session is different than an intense 21-15-9 workout. Both of them are a form of intensity, but they're different, and managing the intensity for those is different as well. But we also control this variable, right?
Yeah.
We control this part of the definition. So what does that look like?
Yeah. So yes, it is high intensity, right? Because intensity drives results, but it's relative intensity, meaning, right, what's intense for you might be a little bit different than what's intense for another person.
100%.
And that's kind of that's what our coaches are trained in, right? We call it threshold training, right? Knowing where someone is in their fitness, learning their fitness level, and can we get them to have an intense workout, but that is relative to their fitness level, right? So my relative intensity is different than my grandma's relative intensity, right? We could do 2159 of squats and pull-ups, right? And my intensity on that workout will be different than my grandma's, but I can still get her to where we want that relative intensity, and she's going to get just as good as workout as I do.
100%. And someday your relative intensity looks different than what it does now, right? Like this is also a you versus you kind of thing, and something that changes over time is the intensity that you can handle at this point in your life is different, but it's still relative and important to know what that is and to chase after it.
And honestly, I think that's a skill and something to be very aware of, because a lot of times you can think in your brain, man, I'm not as fit as I once was. I can't do what I once did. I'm not as strong as I used to be. But it's super important to realize that life changes. Life goals change. You become more busy or whatever it may be. And that's why we have the target times, right? The target times, listen to your coach when he's given he or she is giving the whiteboard brief, because those target times are kind of how we can control that relative intensity.
Yeah, that is an important connection to make. The way you perform a workout and the kind of time you get on something is directly tied to the intensity. So if we're trying to complete a 21:15.9 and I do it in 6 minutes and Josh does it in 2, which is probably an accurate reflection. If it's super intense for me, that's great. And it's super intense for Josh, that's great. But if I cruised and got 6 minutes, I'm not even getting the same stimulus or workout as Josh. And so we put those target times there to say, try and get this work done in this amount of time, and you will be in the kind of intensity we're shooting for.
Right, and we can do that, right, with different scales, with different weights. It's very changeable, very scalable. That's why I love CrossFit, is because we can play with that relative intensity and help you get the intensity that you need to drive your results.
Right. And I think this is the last part of the definition for a reason, because it's the last thing that we introduce to people who are starting CrossFit, is high intensity. So there's that natural progression of mechanics, do a movement well, execute it correctly, then consistency, do that movement well and correctly over and over and over again, and then intensity, do that movement correctly over and over again, quickly or with heavy load, in a real kind of CrossFit workout setting.
Because you can get that wrong.
Definitely,
and I've seen it, is where you come in and you think high intensity is the goal, but you don't move well, you don't pay attention to form, you can't do it well over time, and that can really mess it up. So I think here, making sure, right, and I know our coaches do this, is we want you to move well, right? We want you to do it consistently, and then, like you said, that high intensity is the intensity that will build the capacity. So when we put this all together, constantly varied functional movements performed at a high intensity, what that is a method that works.
100%.
It builds capacity in all directions over a broad scope of fitness. And the more and more people that come through here and come to CrossFit Fortem, and we do this with them, I see it change their life. I see it make them almost not even recognizable. Right. And it's absolutely incredible that it does work. That's why we do it. That's why we believe it. That's why we push this thing that we want to do.
Yeah. Hopefully understanding it is helpful to you. It gives you confidence in what you're doing, gives you confidence in your coaches. You look at a workout on the board differently. With a little more context, you can say like, okay, I see where I need to be completing this workout with intensity. I need to see, where I need to focus on mechanics and consistency so that I can move well with intensity. Hopefully it just helps you have this extra context of the real fundamental principles of CrossFit.
I think that's an important one, what you just said there. I like what you said of listen to your coach, right? They know your fitness level. They learn you. They know what you can and can't do. And a lot of times we want progress so fast that we try to rush things, right? Progress is a slow thing, right? It's consistency that we talked about, consistency in doing those things. That's why consistency is part of the progression of this. And I think if there's one piece of advice that, I could really say is really listen to the whiteboard brief. We talk about the WOD notes, right? We talk about that target time. We talk about the time cap. Those things are there to help you. Right? We talk about, okay, how long should this row take? How long should, right? How many sets should I be able to do the pull-ups in? Those types of things are super important when you are creating a workout of the day that you're going to do, because that all pertains to the relative intensity that you're going to get in that workout, right? And your coaches are there to help you do that. So ask them questions. Talk about, hey, I don't know if I could do this in this time, so what should I do, right? We have the different levels, level 1, level 2, level 3, right? Those are guardrails in the workout that we want you to do, but that's changeable, right? And having the mindset of, okay, I can change this. We can change this workout to get me in that time cap, in that target time, because you'll get the right relative intensity, and intensity drives results. And we'll dive into that. I'm sure that's going to be a future episode of intensity. But when you do that, you'll get fitter, right? It does 100% work. Awesome. I love that we did this. Next episode, we're going to dive into how CrossFit defines fitness. Super interesting episode. Something that you can read on the CrossFit Journal about to prepare before you listen. Super different than what most of the fitness world is chasing. Yeah. Right. And the cool thing is it's measurable, it's observable, and it's repeatable. All things that we want.
Amazing.
Right.
This is going to be a fun series to continue pushing forward.
Yeah, I'm excited that we're doing it. Thanks for listening. Follow, subscribe. Catch us next time.
See ya.